As I mentioned, Bradley Manning, again, apparently the pushback from these different op-eds, and in the wake of P.J. Crowley, the State Department spokesperson, being fired for stating the obvious that the treatment of Bradley Manning has been stupid and counterproductive and unnecessary. The DOD, they still take his underwear away, but they put him in like a large burlap sack, an engineered burlap sack that is consistent with the humiliation and the attempts to break someone down in prison. I think there's actually a quote from Manning. This comes from a report from him. Though I am still required to strip naked in my cell at night, I am now given the smock to wear. First, I did not want to wear this item of clothing due to how coarse it was and how uncomfortable it felt. However, the brig now orders me to wear the smock at night. So there you have it. It really is stunning. It really is stunning. And this, there was a report somewhere that Obama was looking for ways to reach out to his base. How about just reaching out to some form of responsibility? I mean, it's just stunning. And this story, which really set alarm bells off for me, it came via the Jonathan Chait at the New Republic, who is the New Republic. Of course, their job is to be the responsible element of the Democratic Party. In other words, basically just the establishment and administration ass kissers, more often than not. And he quotes this piece from Alexander Bolton in The Hill, which is a sort of like a, it's a small paper that goes to staffers and whatnot. And, again, when you see stuff like this, it just sets off alarm bells with me, because it is clearly somebody's trying to frame the context of the debate. And the title of this piece, Social Security Reform Splits White House Political and Economic Teams. Now, we have heard for months that there was rumor that Obama may bring up Social Security, quote-unquote, reform, which means cuts to Social Security. Completely irrelevant in terms of the deficit Social Security is. I mean, I guess to the extent that, it's relevant in the same way that if we said we're going to default on all our bonds and all our loans, that would be relevant to the deficit too. If we didn't have to pay anybody back for anything, then yes, we would cut our deficit. But then if we weren't going to pay anybody back for anything, we wouldn't have to worry about the deficit, because there wouldn't be one. If we defaulted on all of our loans and our bonds, then of course, yes, there would be no deficit. So that's what you would have to say is the only connection between the deficit and Social Security. That's just the reality of it. So we have this story with a Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner, National Economic Council Director Gene Sperling, and Sperling's deputy Jason Furman, leading figures in the president's economic team, are pressing Obama to cut Social Security benefits if necessary, say sources familiar with their positions. But Obama's political team, led by David Axelrod, David Plouffe, and Jim Messina, are urging the president to understand that backing benefit cuts could prove disastrous to his 2012 election hopes, sources say. The political team is winning the argument so far, but internal debate rages at the White House as Republicans in Congress insist sweeping efforts to restore government finances must include Social Security reform. There are two camps, the source added. One camp wants to be able to throw a bone to the Republicans and some centrist Democrats, the political people who prefer not to be accused of being the party that cuts Social Security in those ways. Some political people would like to see the president out there defending the program and making the case that it has nothing to do with the deficit. When I read something like this, that there is a leak from the White House, obviously, I mean, this is obviously coming from the White House, that the responsible economic people, the economic advisors say we must cut Social Security, and the political people are saying don't cut it because it's bad for electoral politics, I get very, very worried. In addition, obviously, to these economic advisors who are basically saying to the president, look, you can default on the loans that have been offered to us by the Social Security Trust Fund. You can default on those bonds, and these are interest-bearing bonds. Remember that. The loans that the Social Security Trust Fund has made to the general fund is actually bearing interest. Hundreds of billions of dollars of interest a year. You can default on those promises because that was just money lent to us by workers, by the middle class. We would never, ever think to suggest that you default on the loans that were paid to us by foreign countries, by large institutional players, by millionaires and billionaires who have bought treasury bonds, or investment bankers for that matter, who have bought treasury bonds because they were a solid investment, a solid, safe, and secure investment. Those we would never suggest that you default on. The ones coming from Social Security, yes, we would suggest that you do. This piece also says the trust fund has a theoretical $2.6 trillion surplus, but that money has been spent by the federal government, like general revenues. See, this is fascinating phrasing of this, because we would never say, well, yes, you have a bond, but it's theoretical. Yes, it's on paper, but it's theoretical. It's a theoretically, the U.S. government will pay you back. No, what we say in those instances is that this is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States, which makes it the safest investment probably in the world at this point, which is why interest rates are so low, which is why when you loan us money, we give you such a small return because it's so safe and secure. But the use of theoretical in this context is a clear indication of where the writer is coming from. And then we have Jonathan Chait responding that, oh, this would be a great move by the president. I'd argue that politically speaking, I mean, can you imagine now? We know all the numbers on Social Security, right? We know that, and in fact, I would argue that it was the polls that came out at the end of last year that showed that Republicans are more trusted on Social Security than Democrats are now. The Republican Party, who has been trying to dismantle Social Security for 70 years, is more trusted than Democrats. We know that poll after poll after poll after poll show that 80% of the American people say, do not touch Social Security. That would include some Tea Partiers. That would include many Republicans. So we know this. But Chait argues, politically speaking, obtaining a bipartisan deal on the deficit is likely to be popular. While the specifics of cutting entitlements are extremely unpopular, the general meta message of bipartisan cooperation is highly popular. People tend to follow the broad heuristics of whether the parties are getting along rather than the specifics. I got news for you. You cut people's pension that they and their ancestors have paid into, their parents have paid into, just in the same way that your parents benefited from their parents paying into the system. That's not likely to be defeated by the broad heuristics of bipartisan support. But this, of course, is part of the agenda. This is the sales job of the moneyed elite and their water carriers in the establishment media to the American public. That look, yes, the 60% of you who rely on Social Security for over 50% of your retirement income, the next quintile, which is surely about to edge into that same category of relying on Social Security for more than 50% of your retirement income because your 401ks were devastated, you will bask in the heuristics of bipartisan support as you enjoy a wonderful cat food dinner tonight. Would you care for some bipartisan Chablis with that Friskies buffet you're eating?